Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming out today at the New London Maritime Society, right in back of the Custom House, and here for the press conference with our Senator Richard Blumenthal. And I'll turn it right over to Richard Blumenthal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I am really honored and excited and pleased to be at this historic place for this historic purpose. The Custom House and the Maritime Society recognize the importance of our valuing environmental sites and resources, and that's why we're here today, to make sure that we preserve one of the most important environmental resources in our country. I know that sounds like a little bit of an exaggeration, but there is no other place like Plum Island. In this densely populated region, to find a treasure of this magnitude and scope is really unique. And so we have a special obligation to make sure that it is protected from the development that might destroy those environmental values. It's 840 acres, virtually pristine, undeveloped, a home to species that use it to stop along the way, like birds going elsewhere, or who use the waters around it, or make it their home all year round. And it is a place that we want to preserve for our children and generations to come. Not on our watch should be our mantra when it comes to losing this gem. Now, you all know that it has served for many years as a place where research was done on animal diseases. A lot of legends have originated about the dangers and the uses of the island. As we know from science, it's actually a very benign place and could easily be converted to development, but much more valuably kept undeveloped. And that is the purpose of the bill that I am introducing. The Plum Island Conservation Act would essentially eliminate the mandate now in the law that it be sold to the highest bidder. It will be sold at some point because the research lab there now is moving to Kansas, and the mandate in the law says sell it to the highest bidder. That mandate is outdated, misguided, and wrong-headed, because the money that was going to be realized from that sale is no longer necessary to move and rebuild the laboratory. In fact, the money has been appropriated, $1.25 billion. It's already been appropriated. It may not be enough, but it's not coming from the sale of that island. So here's the deal. There are a lot of folks who would like to turn it into commercial, residential, maybe some combination of the two, maybe golf courses. I hear people in high places had plans for it at one point when they were still full-time developers, but it ought to be preserved, and the sale, if it occurs, ought to be to either another government agency or to a private conservatory group, but not to the highest bidder, so that it will be preserved. Now, the bill doesn't mandate a sale to any particular bidder, but it does eliminate the mandate that it be sold to the highest bidder. Indeed, I think it is important to pass this measure. The House has a different version with the same goal, but it would simply require a GAO study before the sale. So it could still be sold, but the sale would be delayed until the GAO study is complete. I think we ought to preserve it completely, permanently, irrevocably, and that's the purpose of the Plum Island Preservation Act. We have bipartisan support. We have both sides of the Sound behind it. We have New York and Connecticut united in the Senate, as well as in the House behind this kind of measure. We have editorial support, for example, from the New London Day, which is extremely important. And we have in the Senate the Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, who will guarantee, or it reflects, let me put it that way, strong Democratic support in the United States Senate. All we need is a few Republicans, and we can accomplish this goal. I feel very, very hopeful and optimistic about passing this measure. But today is a great kickoff because we just introduced the bill in the last days of last week before we went out of session for August. And there's no celebrating yet, but I'm always proud to be with advocates like we have here, environmental advocates and activists, who are the ones who will make it happen, because they're the ones who will produce the grassroots support that we need to cross the finish line. So with that, let me introduce Chris Kreider.
Thank you, Sam. Well, good afternoon. My name is Chris Kreider, and I work for Save the Sound, but I'm an outreach coordinator for the Preserve Plum Island Coalition, which is a group of 82 member organizations with several thousand individual citizens who are working together to try to protect Plum Island. We would like to give so many thanks to the New York and Connecticut congressional delegations for all of their hard work. And we are grateful to Senator Blumenthal for being a Long Island Sound champion for a long time now and a leader in the fight to save Plum Island. So why are we here fighting for Plum Island? As the Senator mentioned, first and foremost, Plum Island is an ecological and historical national treasure. No doubt about it. But federal legislation was passed in 2009, which was interpreted by the Department of Homeland Security that the entirety of Plum Island must be sold to the highest bidder. And that is a grave injustice because it bypasses, completely circumvents the normal disposition process for government surplus property. So we are so appreciative that our Senate delegations are trying to right that federal wrong with the Plum Island Conservation Act. So now let me highlight our lineup of speakers today, members of the Preserve Plum Island Coalition, and on our steering committee. First, we'll have up Bob DeLuca from the Group for the East End. He has come all the way from across the pond from Southold, and he'll talk about the local perspective on Plum Island. David Sutherland from the Nature Conservancy will talk about the flora and fauna on the island. And Janice Leach of Audubon, Connecticut will give us a little bit about the amazing birds on the island. And Susan Tomulovich, and by the way, thank you for allowing us to use your great facilities here at the Custom House. She'll give us a little bit about the historic perspective on Plum Island, followed by Lou Birch with the Citizens Campaign for the Environment, giving us a few closing remarks. Bob.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much again. Bob DeLuca speaking on behalf of Group for the East End from across the pond, but also speaking, I believe, for the tens of thousands of Long Islanders who really care about Plum Island, who see Plum Island more than your average person, because we take that ferry that comes in right down the street here as a regular basis on our pathway to New England. I'm very fortunate. As a kid, I grew up on this side of the pond and spent my summers at Sherwood Isle and Seaside Park. And that experience really helped me to develop a love of the shoreline and a love of nature. And today I live about 7 miles west of Plum Island in the town of Southold, and I can see from that perspective the beauty of the eastern Long Island Sound. And I think, as the senator has said, there may be no more important available piece of property for us on the eastern seaboard than Plum Island. And the great irony, of course, is that we already own it, but we have to fight to hang on to it. And for any of you that have spent time on the East End or spent time anywhere along the shoreline, Plum Island is a relic. It's a relic of a time long past. It's a refuge, as you'll hear more about, for species that can't find other places. But for those of us on the North Fork, it's been a great source of inspiration and also employment. About 200 people in the town of Southold and other North Forkers, work at that lab on a daily basis. And those of us in the coalition, in addition to preserving the majority of that island, are looking for a productive and benign reuse of those laboratory facilities that you, as the taxpayers, have spent $23 to $25 million in the last 5 years to make great laboratories. I don't want to see a wrecking ball taken to those laboratories. We've done what we can do at the local level. The town of Southold has worked to impose some zoning on that island that would make it harder to develop than it was before. But all of us know that a motivated developer who is essentially bent on building can pressure small towns and small governments and beat them to death and undo even the most well-intentioned zoning. So the only way that we're really going to see the future of that island protected and its integrity preserved is through federal action that takes out this ridiculous law that started this mess. And on behalf of all of us on Long Island, I want to thank Senator Blumenthal and the Connecticut delegation, our Long Island and New York delegation, and again, in a world with lots of political rifts, this is a bipartisan effort. And in my lifetime, having seen activity on the Sound from the West End to the East End, it's the partnership and leadership that comes from this cooperation that gets us the best environmental results. So I'm very hopeful and thankful that today's bill will be another success story and preserve Plum Island for everybody on this side of the pond and everybody on that side of the pond. It's a great feature we should work hard to preserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll hear in a minute about the extraordinary bird life on the island, but I want to take a moment first to talk about the extraordinary array of plant life that we've got here. Scientists who have inventoried and studied natural habitats across the state of New York have said that Plum Island has one of the 10 or 12 greatest concentrations of rare plant species in the entire state of New York. And it's a big state, as we know, with a lot of natural habitats. You can find 16 plant species here on the island that have been officially listed on New York's list of threatened and endangered species, and there are several more that have been listed as rare. And in total, there are over 250 native plant species on the island, which is an extraordinary number for an area that's less than 1,000 acres. These habitats create a very important home for the birds that we're going to hear about, for insects and other wildlife. So for those who believe that biological diversity is something critical to our ecological systems, Plum Island is truly a gem. And it would be a gem just in and of itself because of this amazing diversity that we got here. But it's also in proximity to Fisher's Island, which has the highest concentration of rare plant species in New York State. It's also adjacent to Orient Point, Shelter Island, some other critical coastal habitats. So they in aggregate make just an amazing gateway into Long Island Sound. And I just take a moment to thank the senator and his colleagues for some other very good news that we got about Long Island Sound recently, and that's in the current fiscal year's budget, which was only passed in May, even though the fiscal year started last fall. We actually got an increase in funding for the EPA's Long Island Sound program, and that's due to efforts of a lot of people here and to Senator Blumenthal and his colleagues. And that's really extraordinary news, and we're already off to a good start in next year's budget for that funding. So these are all going towards keeping this incredibly important resource intact as an ecological wonder that's truly of national significance. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you so much, and Senator Blumenthal. We just want to thank you for your leadership and commitment to really, reintroducing legislation to protect Plum Island. So my name is Janice Leach, and I'm the policy manager for Audubon, Connecticut. Audubon, Connecticut is the state office of the National Audubon Society, with 4 local chapters, 3 centers, and over 10,000 members across the state. Our mission is the protection of birds and the places they need for today and tomorrow. Our approach is that work involves us in a wide array of environmental, wildlife, conservation, and human health concerns. Plum Island is recognized as an important bird area by the National Audubon Society. It serves as a vital nesting, migratory stopover, and wintering habitat to more than 210 documented bird species, including the federal threatened piping plover, along with 1,000 of other migratory birds. Without this legislation in place, the island is slated for sale to the highest bidder, as Senator Blumenthal mentioned earlier, rather than being preserved for its conservation values and unique location. The consequences of not preserving the conservation values of the island would be devastating for both the island's culture and natural resources, as well as local communities. As the human footprint expands, the natural places birds and other wildlife need become increasingly scarce. It would be nearly impossible for conservation interests to compete against well-financed private developers if the federal government moves forward with auctioning off Plum Island. And I just would like to say in closing that Audubon, Connecticut will continue to work with Congress to find a bipartisan path forward. And as part of one of the largest conservation organizations in the United States, we will continue to advocate and use our strength to make the American public recognize that this is not a local issue. It is a national issue, and that it will set the stage of how other ecologically sensitive areas in federal ownership will be handled moving forward. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Senator.
Hi, Susan.
So nice to see you.
Good to see you.
On behalf of the New London Maritime Society, I'd like to welcome all of you here. We're really proud to have Senator Blumenthal and Save the Sound have this important press event here. And we've been a very enthusiastic supporter of Preserve Plum Island effort. The Custom House Maritime Museum, which is where we are, is a community history museum. Our tagline is telling the stories of the waterfront. In addition to managing this building, we have 3 lighthouses, and Harbor Light, Ledge Light, and one which actually is in New York, which is Race Rock Lighthouse, which means we've had to think as an organization geographically, not politically, for quite a while. And I love that about this group, that everyone is pitching in and working together. I've been asked to say something about the history of Plum Island, and it is a historic site that has everything. It's a naturally beautiful place, historically secretive, so there's some mystery there. Native Americans hunted here. It was first charted by Adrian Block when he sailed through Long Island Sound. There's a lighthouse, a fort, as I said, a site for secret government research, and once it was even owned by someone from New London, which is only 15 miles from Plum Island. It's all in this book, which was done by historians at the East End Foundation. Do you have this book?
Yeah.
Oh, here you go. I'll give it to you.
Great. Thank you.
Excellent.
Take out my check first. There you go.
Thank you.
Yesterday was National Lighthouse Day, and we deal with lighthouses, and people think of them as something kind of quaint and an anachronism. But when they were built, they were an important part of our coastal defense and important for keeping our commerce running in the country from the earliest days. And it's interesting to note that particularly in this area where the Long Island Sound opens up to the Atlantic, we have many of our lighthouses are paired with forts, and that's the case out at Plum Island with Fort Terry. But history wasn't just 100 years ago. It is something that's going on to this day, and we've taken quite a few trips out following your lead with Save the Sound to Plum Island. 2 years ago, one of the groups surprised me. 1/3 of the people who had signed up, it turns out, were all from one family. Their grandmother had grown up as a little girl as the daughter of the lighthouse keeper. They had a full notebook of photographs, and they all posed in the same place with a picture of their grandmother to take a family picture. We work very closely with ex-Coast Guardsmen, and several of them, including a good friend, Doug Allen, actually lived out at the lighthouse when it was run by the Coast Guard, and he had great stories he loved to tell our students when they were here, or any visitors, about the research facility providing the keepers with steaks. Hard to believe, but yes, that's true. So history was not just 100 years ago. It's wonderful to watch this growing coalition, the artworks being done, the photographs documenting the island, the research being done and documented, all about this effort to which we are very proud to be a part. While the elements at Plum Island may be unique, they're all parts of wider networks and larger stories. And thank you very much.
Thank you. That was excellent.
So I'd first like to start off by thanking Senator Blumenthal for bringing us all here today. With everything that's happening right now, it's good to know that we still have leaders in Washington, D.C. that believe in the environment and the value of our precious natural resources. And so my name is Lou Birch. I'm the Connecticut Program Director for Citizens Campaign for the Environment. I should say that CCE, we are emboldened by the news that Senator Blumenthal, along with Senator Murphy and Senator Gillibrand in New York, have taken the first steps towards preserving Plum Island in its perpetuity. But we understand that there are still hurdles ahead of us. Now more than ever, our environment is under attack in Washington, D.C., and while some of us look at Plum Island as an ecological treasure, others look at Plum Island and they see exclusive golf courses and helicopter landings, a playground for the elite. If we can succeed at preserving Plum Island, our grandchildren and their grandchildren and their grandchildren will get to appreciate its true value. But if we fail, they may never get a chance to enjoy it at all. Opportunities to preserve a valuable and unique ecological treasure like this one are few and far between. And we have the moral responsibility not to squander that opportunity. And so reversing the federal mandate to sell Plum Island is the only way to truly ensure its preservation. And we applaud Senator Blumenthal and his colleagues in the Senate for their leadership on this important issue. With our environment under fire in Congress, there's never been a more urgent time to protect Plum Island. So thank you all for coming, and thank you again for your support.
Thank you. Any questions?
Are there any Republican senators who might join you in this effort to present the bill?
Good question. We don't have any yet. As you know, in the House, Lee Zeldin of New York, the congressman from Long Island, joined. We don't have a Republican senator yet as a co-sponsor, but I think there'll be support on the Republican side. because I think, as many of us have said, this issue is really national in importance. And I'm very pleased to have the history, because I think it will be persuasive to our Republican colleagues that not only now, but in the past, there has been really strong bipartisan involvement in this cause. I just was skimming through it a little bit, and Republican officials and Democrats really united in forging the history of this island. And I want to make the point that it has been said, but thank my colleagues, Chris Murphy, Chuck Schumer, Kirsten Gillibrand, but also on the House side, Joe Courtney, who's represented here today, have been leaders in this effort, Rosa DeLauro. And we have, our entire delegation really is behind it in Connecticut. We have good contacts on the Republican side. Well, thank you all for coming, Chris. Thanks for hosting it, and thanks to the Customs House and Maritime Center. This is a historic place, and really appreciate being here. Thank you all. And you brought the sun.
Well done.
Thanks for joining us. This has been great. We hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I did.
Sorry for the little bump. We hope you'll join the Preserve Plum Island Coalition and visit our page, which we also have a Facebook page for that. And of course, stay tuned to Save the Sounds Facebook page whenever you can. Thanks. Bye-bye.